guys, it's Cassandra Williams from Educational Innovation 360. So I want to give you this throwback. I did this for a district maybe about, I want to say, 2 years ago. This is really when the science of reading was really big and popular, and how many teachers were kind of in these roles and they understood the research, but they didn't pretty much know how this all fit into their curriculum, how to put this together. What do we do tomorrow morning, right? And I always call this is the implementation gap. This is where we as instructional leaders, we need to support our teachers in the classroom, as well as leadership coaching, planning the lesson, walkthrough, and the tools. And it's all connected to make sure our teachers feel confident enough to do this day one. So it's the beginning of the school year. Today, I'm kind of going to show you with what effective literacy even looks like in the classroom and how we as Ei360 help build it. So reading comprehension requires a multiplier, right? And so one of the biggest misconceptions in literacy is kind of believing that students need either more of phonics or more of reading comprehension or reading instruction, right? And so really thinking about the science of reading and how it tells us that, reading is both and plus, right? Either decoding or language comprehension is missing the comprehension structure. So many districts unknowingly kind of overinvest in one side versus the other. And so what we kind of do is make sure that the needs and the strengths are through that classroom observation and lens to decide who needs what and when. And it's always bi-weekly coaching cycle. So instead of kind of guessing what teachers need, we identify, look right inside, and provide the right instruction. We call it just in time. And then we go in all the classrooms and we see this rope that's posted, which is not included with writing, but writing needs to be included in it. But that's neither here nor there, right? But it reminds us that reading is not a central skill. So being really intentional about strengthening every strand is crucial. And unfortunately, many of our teachers haven't received the coaching on how these strands appear in actual classroom through their daily lessons. So we really ensure that we're strengthening a lot of these areas and figuring out where it's found in our curriculums that we have. Now, I know a lot of reading teachers will give me a lot of pushback on this kind of paradigm shift, but really thinking about the hardest improvements are kind of like changing some of the practices that some of our research no longer supports. So, highlighting these instructional shifts the districts are making like nationwide, changing the curriculum slight doesn't automatically change true instruction. But, working alongside teacher, like I said, providing the classroom modeling, the lessons, the design, the feedback, to where teachers feel supported and not kind of overwhelmed with changing everything at once. And then there's this gear. I say it's this engine that continues to move, but sometimes the pieces of the engine aren't there. So it's very hard to move schools. So curriculum alone, we know, does not improve outcomes, right? And so think of our systems do, these gears, right? If one gear stops turning, the entire system starts to slow down. And so many districts purchase these curriculum, but don't build the infrastructure to support the implementation. Okay, so I know things can change, things are changing, and there's never a one size that fits all. So thinking of how this slide really illustrates kind of balanced literacy block should look like, especially like in elementary school, right? How should I structure my block? Here we go. Really thinking about these pieces and what needs to be done during these pieces within the school day. All right, so looking at the first 20 minutes, establish kind of the foundation for reading success, teachers being very explicit with instructional routines, right? We think of the routines inside the classroom rather than simply kind of describing them as effective instruction. We demonstrate, we coach it, we provide immediate attention, feedback afterwards, just to continue to accelerate the teaching student progress. So now we're talking about that phonics staircase, which we all love, right? So there's a mini progression. So effective phonics doesn't just happen, right? These are the pieces that are necessary, the templates that we provide, the coaching cycles, the classroom observation that really identifies each step of that phonics staircase. So now this is kind of what we're starting to see, of course, the tier intervention, the matrix, right? One of the challenges that I see with intervention is it's kind of disconnected from a lot of the core instruction, right? And students receive kind of, okay, more reading block, longer time, but not necessarily the right instruction to move the needle. So we help align tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, even bringing in partners with MTSS to really identify where are our gaps, what do we need to do, and how we need to coach to support the classroom teacher. And then there's the language comprehension. It's more than, of course, just decoding, right? Students must develop the background, the vocabulary necessary, and teachers have to help build the scaffolding to build the background for our students. We have the language structures. And then, of course, there's reasoning, right? And so thinking of how we help intentionally plan for these components as opposed to hoping that they naturally form, right? Our coaching really focused on deepening these while building literacy. Now, I know that morphology is big, and it should be big in your school as well. So as students progress into the upper elementary grades, second, third, fourth, this is increasingly as important, the prefix, suffix, the root words. It helps students unlock unfamiliar words, thinking about how do we integrate morphology during our school day and our program. So now what is our dashboard? Our word recognition, right? This is where I think coaching becomes so powerful, rather than these generic kind of walkthroughs. We help with our instructional leaders to know exactly what to look for. What are the teacher doing? What are the students doing? And so thinking of our tools that create a dashboard across all classrooms to where we understand that we've supported each teacher so many times, not only just evaluation, but we're here to help to support and to cheerlead the work that the teachers are doing in the classroom, right? The same principle applies with the language comprehension, right? So effective walkthroughs, instructional evidence, rather than kind of personal preference, right? We make sure that our coaches and leaders get the protocol necessary for our compliance, and we want to make sure that teachers are moving and constantly learning as well. I always say, it's about the learning cycle. It should never be a one-day PD. Real improvement happens over time through continuous learning, the cycle, the planning, the reflecting, and the reinforcement. So definitely think about what are we doing to ensure that the cycle continues and the development and the learning continues to grow as well. All right, so our mission is clear. Research isn't really just understanding and passing the test on the science of reading. It's really knowing how to implement these ideas and these concepts across every classroom, and Ei360 helps to build that bridge. So we partner with schools and teachers, leaders, to make sure every classroom gets exactly what they need. And so when teachers are with this ongoing coaching instead of kind of a one-time PD, that's where we kind of see things improve. And so think about us when you want a partnership with our literacy program. We would love to partner with you this year. And the next slide is definitely about some of the citations. So again, if your district is in the science of reading and interested, but still kind of working to achieve, the consistent implementation across the classrooms through meaningful coaching, professional development, leadership development, observations, planning, professional learning, definitely we'd love to schedule a consultation to discuss how we can support your teachers and literacy outcomes for every student in the building. Talk to you later. Bye.